Hi,
Hello,
welcome to the Second Rainbow Coalition Reading Group. We are reading Ojibwa Warrior, Dennis Banks and the Rise of the American Indian Movement. And we're going to kick this off with Comrade Gabby reading the Second Rainbow Coalition Statement of Unity. Go ahead, Gabby.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. The Statement of Unity, preface. The U.S. was founded as a colonial settler state based upon the white supremacy and slavery, stealing the lands of the indigenous nations, breaking every treaty made with them, and confining them to reservations, concentration camps. As the country became more powerful, the eagle sunk its claws in other nations, making war on Mexico and grabbing its northern territories, invading Cuba, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, and the Philippines, and either annexing them outright or making them colonies or neo-colonies. And in the 20th century, it became the major imperialist power in the world, exploiting both the people within its boundaries and those in every other country, bullying them with military interventions and robbing them or of their right to self-determination. As Sweet Nguyen stated, we have two enemies to fight, racism and capitalism. Between the two, capitalism is primary. Racism is a byproduct of capitalism. The working people of the world, of every ethnicity or nationality, face a common enemy that is destroying life on Earth. Our enemy is a small ruling class of property owners controlling most of the world's wealth and resources. We must have our basic needs met to live a good and meaningful life. Food, shelter, healthcare, education, freedom from oppression by the states, and peace with other nations. To obtain these essential things for life, we must have the power to see to it that the abundance that is available is shared equitably. Statement of Unity for the Second Rainbow Coalition. The legacy of the First Rainbow Coalition dates back to its founding on April 4th, 1969, by the original Black Panther Party, original Young Lords, and the Young Patriots organization. A number of other organizations joined the coalition not too long afterwards, such as the American Indian Movement, Brown Berets, Rising Up Angry, the Red Guards, and others. Since the founding of the United States, the masses have developed a number of popular movements that came together to fight back against the capitalist imperialist system in various ways around particular demands. Nevertheless, none had established a movement quite like the First Rainbow Coalition. This historic movement was the first of its kind to establish a model of class struggle like no other. Its charismatic leader, Chairman Fred Hampton of the Illinois chapter of the original Black Panther Party, stated that at the end of the day, we weren't engaged in a quote-unquote race struggle. He said, it's a class struggle, God damn it. By uniting with the other oppressed ethnicities and masses, they were able to bridge the gap between the various ethnic communities that white supremacy had long sought to keep divided. This class solidarity equipped them with a material basis and class consciousness to see their common class condition. To see their common class condition. Therefore, the necessity to form a united front against their common class oppressor, the capitalist imperialist ruling class. The ruling class viewed this as the greatest threat to their class rule, and subsequently used the entire repressive forces of the state, police courts, jails, prisons, and intelligence agencies, etc., in order to crush the emerging revolutionary socialist movements. We refounded the Rainbow Coalition on May 14th, 2021, with the intent of upholding the legacy of the original Rainbow Coalition. We believe that this historic example is the model of the United Front that will best serve our class liberation. By upholding the 10-point program of the original Black Panther Party, which was subsequently adopted and later expanded by the original Young Lords, Young Patriots organization, and all other original Rainbow Coalition members, we establish our pragmatic unity. The 6 disciplinary rules that we uphold ties all organizations in our coalition to a common professional discipline. History has bestowed upon our generation a common class mission to fulfill. The representatives of the capitalist imperialist ruling class, represented by the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, cannot liberate us. It is their class intention and interest to uphold our common class oppression. Therefore, it is only we, the oppressed masses of all ethnicities and nationalities, who must build the necessary class solidarity, class consciousness, organizational structures, and a united front that will ultimately liberate ourselves. This is what the Second Rainbow Coalition is committed to. This is the historic mission we intend to fulfill. Dare to struggle, dare to win. All members of the coalition: New African Black Panther Party, White Panther Party, Green Party of New Jersey, Poor People's Army, La Masa Nacional de Blancs, Fury, Feminist Uprising to Resist Inequality and Exploitation, NASO, North Alabama School of Organizers, New Era Young Lords, Guardian Rebellion, American Indian Movement, NE, Woodland Chapter. The 6 disciplinary rules. Number 1, members will conduct themselves in a manner to bring credit to the coalition and will treat others with respect and politeness. Number 2, members will be sober when on Rainbow Coalition business and will not engage in any criminal activity while a member. Number 3, no member will engage in violence except in the extremity of self-defense. Number 4, members will not gossip nor be divisive in the unity of the Second Rainbow Coalition. Number 5, members will not act as informers or work against the purpose of the Second Rainbow Coalition. And number 6, nobody is authorized to speak for the Second Rainbow Coalition unless authorized to do so. And that is the statement of unity, comrades.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Gabby.
You're welcome.
Okay.
And Sister Zen, if you have a problem showing up or pulling up the book, I'll gladly put it up for you if it's a hassle for you. Oh, it looks like Kat's doing that.
But yeah, Kat beat you to it. My computer's got a little bit of a lag, so she's gonna screen share the book for us today. Thank you, Kat. All right. Would either of you like to take a turn reading first, or would you like me to dive in?
I don't mind reading first. Yeah. All right. So, if everyone's okay with it, I'll begin reading. Chapter 14, The Siege. This is not an AIM action. It's an all-Indian action. They can't do anything worse than kill us. Be prepared to defend this position with your life. The feds will be coming. What is at stake here at Wounded Knee is not the lives of a few hundred Indian people, but our whole Indian way of life. Dennis Banks, Ojibwa. At the second day at Knee, I woke up early in the morning, about 5 a.m. I sat up in the car and realized how strange it was to wake up knowing this was a decisive moment in my life, that this morning was only the beginning. I wanted to be part of this movement with all of my body and heart, as a negotiator or as a combatant. I did not care which. I realized that the takeover could last 10 days or even longer. As I sat there in the car, I realized that we had to take a definite plan of action. That day began as an armed standoff. Shots had been fired. Both we and the feds had roadblocks up. Joseph Trimbach, I'm going to say Trimbach, head of the FBI in South Dakota, was already at the federal roadblock, arresting any of our people who tried to leave. We had to develop a game plan immediately. We had to act as an organized group and ensure that we would be seen in the right light. It was important that the American people and the people of the rest of the world understood why we occupied this place and why it was so sacred to us. There was a knock at my car window at around 7 a.m., 7:30 a.m. It was Clyde. He said, Dennis, we'd better call the leadership together. Inside the trading post, some people who had had a huge pot of coffee bubbling called out, come in, come in. We have some hot Java. So we decided to hold our meeting inside the museum there. That museum was an obscenity. The signs read, Wounded Knee Massacre Historic Site. See the mass burial grave. Curious for sale? Massacre photographs and postcards educational. Fucking hell, that's disgusting. Items that had items that had been taken from our slaughtered people were displayed in glass cases. They had large photographs on the walls, almost poster sized, showing our frozen dead, their bodies grotesquely twisted as death overtook them. The photos showed dead mothers with their murdered babies and Chief Bigfoot lying stiffly in a half raised position as though he were still trying to stand up. They showed soldiers grinning among the heaps of slain victims, of bodies stacked like firewood, ready to be dumped in a common ditch. Little personal objects like beaded buckskin dolls taken from the hands of the dead children were also on display. The museum even sold offensive poems about Uncle Sam not taking any quote unquote guff from ghost dancing engines because he ain't built that way. Fucking disgusting. Amidst all this repulsive stuff, we held our meeting. First, we decided the Oglala elders would be the main negotiators. They would be at the center of everything we did. AIM would take a supporting role. Our AIM men and even some of our bravest women would be in the front lines defending the perimeter. Then we further defined the roles and individuals would play. Roos would assume the role of spokesman for the Oglalas, while Clyde and I would act as a spokesman for the American Indian movement. We had already written up our demands and set them to the feds with a man from the Justice Department's Community Relations Service. We told him, communicate this to whoever is in charge. He handed our demands to Trimbeck. We demanded that we personally be allowed to discuss various issues with presidential aide Johnny Ehrlichman and Senators Kennedy, Aborezg, and Fulbright. The letter ended with the only options open to the United States government are: one, they wipe out the old people, women, children, and men by shooting and attacking us, or two, they negotiate our demands. Before noon on the second day at Wounded Knee, Trimbeck arrived in a car with a white flag attached to the antenna. He stopped at the FBI roadblock, got out of the car, and started walking toward us. Carter met him in a no man's land. It was there, between their roadblock and ours, that discussions began. Carter wanted their assurance that the feds would not advance any further. Trimbeck said he would not and could not assure us of that, and that the only thing he could guarantee us was safe conduct to Pine Ridge, which of course would mean our arrest. He returned to his roadblock, saying he would be back in the afternoon. Later in the day, when Trimbeck came back, he was met by Roos. He told Roos that our only option was to surrender. Roos, of course, laughed at this. Trimbeck repeatedly accused us of forcibly occupying the village, quote unquote, forcibly. Roos responded that this was our land and that the FBI and marshals were the trespassers. The discussion became heated as Trimbeck insisted over and over again, your only hope is to surrender. Trimbeck wrote in his report, it soon became apparent that Means was getting more excited and that I was getting more nervous, and I therefore decided to leave without engaging in any further conversations with him. According to Roos, Trimbeck was scared shitless and made off as fast as he could. So then it was war. Fucking pig, coward. We situated our defenses among the four roads that intersect at Wounded Knee. On the northwest side, we dug out our last stand bunker near a small housing project to block the road from Manderson. On the northeast side, our little Bighorn bunker blocked Bigfoot Trail where it crossed Wounded Knee Creek on its way to Porcupine. As the Bigfoot Trail led southwest to Pine Ridge, we blocked it with our star bunker. The nearby unpaved Denby Road headed southeast from Wounded Knee. Where it crossed the creek, we placed the Little California bunker on one side and the Denby bunker on the other. South of the knee between the Star and Little California bunkers is where we situated the Crow's Nest bunker. To the northwest between our last stand and Little Bighorn bunkers was the Hawkeye bunker. West of the church, we set up another bunker called Black Elk. Our bunkers were nothing more than covered holes in the ground. The government's field command post was a luxurious Winnebago motorhome with a two-way radio located on top of a hill along our eastern perimeter. It was called Red Arrow. Originally, our perimeter enclosed downtown, quote-unquote, Wounded Knee, and the Sacred Heart Church on what some people called Fry Bread Hill. The hill dominated the landscape of open, rolling prairie. The church housed some of our people and was always jam-packed. It had an altar and plaster case figures of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph flanked by vases of paper flowers. We took so much fire from the feds that the statues had bullet holes in them. We turned the church basement into a kitchen. Behind the church lay the cemetery, a rectangular mass grave in which the victims of the 1890 massacre at Wounded Knee were buried. Downslope south of the church stood the peace or negotiation tipi and two sweet lodges. Further south and across the Bigfoot Trail was the trading post, which served as housing. The museum area of the trading post compound became our security headquarters. Below the trading post and across Denby Road stood our row of four horses. The one with heat and water became our clinic. To the east were two small churches, the Teepee Church and the White Church. Geez, I wonder why they called it the White Church. and the latter of which was made into another kitchen. Below the Teepee Church stood Lansbury House, the comfortable living quarters for the Church of God missionaries. Fucking hell. Wait. I think it went. Oh, never mind. We set ourselves up in these structures that constituted the interior of our perimeter. Some 10 buildings and about a square mile of rolling prairie of withered buffalo grass dotted with snow patches. The land around Wounded Knee was open with few trees and almost no cover. Whatever ground cover had existed outside our perimeter had been burned off by feds in an attempt to eliminate hiding places, and the fires had made the surrounding country acrid with dense clouds of whitish smoke. The feds could do nothing, however, about the little gullies and arroys that made it possible for us to sneak in and out of Wounded Knee. Already by the second day, the media had arrived. We were thankful for their attention. As long as the press were there, we could not be attacked. Carter Camp told one reporter, "I tell you, if it were not for your people, this government would have slaughtered us as it did in 1890. The number of feds steadily increased: 200 in the first day, 250 in the second day, 300 on the third day, and so on. In the end, their number had swollen to almost 500, including ranchers and vigilantes of all kinds who were eager to quote unquote bag themselves one of them red savages. Fucking disgusting. Wayne Colburn, Chief U.S. Marshal and our old adversary during the BIA takeover, arrived. The army was there too, even though the use of the army is domestic conflicts. Even though the use of the army in domestic conflicts it is expressly forbidden by the United States Constitution. Yeah, forbidden until it benefits them. Almost as soon as we occupied the knee, Army advisors and observers from the Pentagon made plans to drive us out of the village. They supplied the federal agents and Wounded Knee with an unbelievable amount of military hardware, enough to kill the whole Oglala tribe. There were 15 armored cars, APCs, 100,000 rounds of M16 ammo, 1,100 parachute illumination flares, 20 sniper rifles with night vision scopes, powerful searchlights, some machine guns, bulletproof vests, gas masks, rations, ponchos, blankets, and helmets. Low-flying army planes performed photo reconnaissance missions, which frightened some of the older women. They thought we were about to be bombed. After the planes left, we liberated a nearby rancher's steer of food. One woman remarked, "If they accuse us of killing the steer, I'm going to tell them those planes just scared it to death." Just to stop, I just want to say, it's really, I find it hilarious how how on one hand the U.S. will try to belittle and demonize AIM by saying they were nothing but a quote unquote couple of activists. Meanwhile, they bring out all of this fucking ammunition shit, which contradicts their claim. It's just to they switch posts between, oh, they were just a couple of radicals, versus treating them like a threat to demonize them and to fit their narrative. And yeah,
Right, as always. And, of course, the government always goes straight for overkill, because like what he pointed out a moment ago, they're saying like that's literally fucking illegal to use military force against American citizens on American grounds.
Yep.
So like the government was being absolutely fucking criminal there. And on top of the fact that, they wanted to come out like that against, a group of people on their own land. This is reservation land. Yep. So, like what he had pointed out prior to that, of like, wait a minute, no, the trespassers here are the fucking government officials.
Yep.
Like, how dare they, that said, we are about halfway through the chapter. Does anybody else want to take a turn reading? I'd seen, like, when we first started, Johnny had unmuted his mic for a moment, so I don't know if he was wanting to take a turn.
Yeah, of course. Where are we at where it said we had asked FBI agents on 172?
Middle of the screen where it says the top secret plan.
Yeah, we were there.
Where the cursor's at now. The top secret plan called Garden Plot.
Okay.
We're streaming the book club, or Kat's streaming the book. She's screen sharing it.
Yeah, because I have the PDF. I'm just looking at that. So where is it at again? What page particularly? Like
page 171, second to last paragraph, the top secret plan called Garden Plot.
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
A top secret Plan Garden Plot was developed by the Pentagon.
Yep.
Okay, to deal with us. Army activity was curated or
Coordinated.
coordinated by the Director of
Um,
Military Support. Did I say that right?
I
Okay.
think you did.
An undercover Pentagon unit was in charge of the Army's assistance to law enforcement agencies. Colonel Volley Warner, Chief of Staff of the 82nd Airborne Division, was ordered to Wounded Knee on February 29th. He was told to wear civilian clothes, presumably
Presumably.
to hide the fact that the Army was illegally involved in a domestic conflict. One of the first things Warner did, to which he probably owe our lives, was to refuse a request by the FBI to commit 2,000 regular Army troops to overrun Wounded Knee. The feds would have followed the soldiers to arrest any survivors. Warner rejected the idea of repeating the 1890 massacre. He found out what went on behind the scenes years later when certain memos and orders were declassified under 1975 amendments to the Freedom of Information Act after the Watergate scandal. In one of those declassified memos, Warner had written, "The aim of the game is not to kill or wound Indians. An Army involvement resulting in loss of life and injury would reflect badly on the Army. Time is of no essence. The project of the exercise is not to create martyrs. We removed the garden plot plans references to using deadly force and persuade the FBI to change their usual shoot to kill rules to shoot wound only in case of self-defense." He had asked FBI agents if they were still shooting to kill. One agent answered, "Rifles are for that purpose." Warner pointed out a second Wounded Knee massacre would be
Disastrous.
Disastrous. He made fun of the feds for being afraid of Indians armed with women and children. If not for them, I might be dead now. Of course, Warner's views were not popular with the administration. An option paper prepared by one of the president's aides suggested that Nixon's authorized massive force, then calculated how much the operation would cost and how many Indians and soldiers were likely to be killed. Nixon's advisors presented him with two choices: to take Wounded Knee by force, regardless of casualties, or to withdraw all federal forces and let Ames and Wilson's goons battle out among themselves. Okay. Which would be much less expensive. These men played deciding our fates without our knowledge. Before long, I realized that we were in for a long haul. I knew the feds would try to strive and freeze us out, but this was our kind of war. We have been fighting hunger and cold all of our lives. Tensions continuously increased on March 1st to APCs with .50 caliber machine guns mounted on the fronts came within 500 yards of our perimeter. The clinic had its first patient that day. One of our young men accidentally shot himself in the hand. On the same day, someone firebombed the Pine Ridge home of Ames Communications. Is that what I just spelled?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, Director Byron DC or
DeSerso.
DeCerso.
Yeah.
No one ever doubted that Wilson's goons were responsible. They had made obscene phone calls to the house before throwing Molotov cocktails through a window. The explosions and shattered glass seriously injured Byron's wife. Byron had told the press earlier, "Wounded Knee is sacred to us," and the way that something becomes sacred through the pain, grief, and loss. On the same day, both of South Dakota's U.S. Senators James, I don't know what that, Albuquerque,
I can't spell either.
yeah, I would just say Albuquerque, and George McGovern arrived and tried to
Mediate.
mediate between us and the government. Whatever that word is, Albuquerque was sympathetic,
Yeah.
but McGovern in his fashionable polyester suit was less so. They achieved nothing, and March 2nd, an additional group of marshals arrived to enforce those already there. With them, same 15 local ranchers with volunteered ranchers had discussed the events and made a revolution that those fucking Indians had raised more than enough
Kane.
gain, and that's a company of red, white, and blue men should be forced to make an end of the Ames
nuisance.
That day, I happened to talk of our young people who worked security at the Black Elk bunker west of the church. He showed me his second caliber rifle and broken stock and held together with duct tape. He told me with a grin, "I have only one bullet for this." He was better off than the guy who had a war Italian rifle. Not a single bullet would fit in it. He still had some food left for the warriors who had been on watch all night. Some of our women served them a breakfast of hard-boiled eggs, cereal, powdered orange juice, and coffee. Lizzie Fasthorse, a grandmother, several times over
was in charge.
Yeah, I lost my place for a second. My bad. I was in charge of the cooking. She soon ran out of eggs as the feds had started to prevent people from bringing us food. Obtaining a steady stream of supplies for us was not easy. Once I made a light of our situation by announcing that there was now not beef you ate today, but an old horse, a nag. Clyde Bellacourt, something like that, replied, "We will eat our horses, dogs, cats, rats, and even dirt before we will submit." Oh, yeah. Again and again, the government's negotiator, Ralph Erickson.
Erickson.
Erickson gave us the same ultimatum. The U.S. offers to let the Indians go free to leave Wounded Knee without threat or mass arrest, but Indians will not have to surrender their weapons. All males must identify themselves. There is no intent to punish persons unknowing involved, but even if we wish to do it, we could not close our eyes to the criminal violations that have occurred. He added there was no question of enmity or that charges won't be filed against the Indians if violations of the law we found the use of force we retake the village has not been eliminated as an alternative. You must leave by 6 p.m. or face immediate arrest. We want you to leave during daylight hours so that we can be sure that you all are out. We went out. We have to be firm. We can't be wishy-washy or you guys would be there forever. On March 3rd, Dickie Wilson issued his own local call to arms. Local, I don't know what that means. Colalas, fellow patriots. What was to happen at Wounded Knee is all part of a long-range plan of the Communist Party. First, they divide the people, get them to fight among themselves, disturb normal function of society, and demand the removal of officials, including myself.
Wow, Jesus fuck.
Does anybody else want to go?
Go ahead, Shay.
To combat this unpleasant nuisance we are confronted with, we are organizing an all-voluntary army of patriots. We need all able-bodied men over 15 years of age. We are requesting General Chesty Pillar, U.S. Marine Corps, retired, to take command. There's no doubt that Wounded Knee is a major communist trust. They have established a beachhead. Now it's up to us to get them out. We will organize while the federal government is negotiating. And when the federal government has conceded, appraised, and just plain surrendered, we will march into Wounded Knee and kill Tokas, Wachikas, Sapas, Spiolas, and hippies. They want to be made martyrs. Let's accommodate them. Since the American Indian movement is supported by non-Indians, we are enlisting the help of all non-Indians under Pine Ridge Reservation. Let's get this show under the road.
Fucking hell.
Translated from the Sioux language, Tokas, Wachikas, Hasopas, and Spiolas meant Indians from other tribes, white people, black people, and Hispanics. In other words, Wilson called upon his followers and anyone else with a racist agenda to join a killing party. However, his 800 or 900 men army never showed up, nor did General Puller show much interest in taking command of Wilson's coons. As early as February 28th, the marshals circulated the order. Do not let newspapers personnel into the area. Beginning March 3rd, reporters were denied access to the hamlet. On March 4th, our telephone lines were cut. The phone had been our only way of communicating with our outside world, except for sneaking out and making our way to 9 miles distant to a cordon of marshals with sniper rifles. Always they put the pressure on. You have to give yourself up or we're coming in. On March 4th, the Fed began to measure the quantity of gasoline in the gas tank of every car that for one reason or the other was allowed to go into the perimeter. They wanted to make sure no one could secretly donate some gas to us. Amongst the distrust that surrounded Wounded Knee, Indians from dozens of tribes achieved a degree of unity never before dreamed of. Most decisions were made by unanimous consent. On rare occasions, we had differing views on things, but we were able to come to consensus. We were not without problems. However, our engineer, Greg Camp, one day became angry and confronted the leaders. He said, things have gone to your head. Your noses are stuck in the air. You want only to talk to the media. You guys better get your act together. Spend some hours a day with the people doing banker duty, digging slit trenches, collect garbage. We all Indians here. There's no such thing as higher class Indians for the media and lower class Indians doing other shit work. With that, he resigned. I begged him to reconsider, but could not persuade him. I felt that he was right and that I, as a member of the leadership, was partly to blame. We then made our medicine men Leonard Crow Dog chief engineer in addition to his duties as a spiritual leader. Wounded Knee was becoming more dangerous overall. Almost every day we were fired upon, sometimes only a few rounds, at other times a heavy barrage. We never knew what would set it off. In between, there were negotiations. Most of the time we would communicate to a two-way radio with red arrows. The Fed's command hub, often trading jokes or insults. We had many ceasefires and truces, which were always broken with the Feds. On March 4th at about 8 p.m., an NBC drove right up to our entrenchment and fired upon us. They also set up a tear gas canister. We shot back in a fire ensured in front of the Sacred Heart Church. Bullets, gotta be careful, don't kill God. Where was I? Church? I forgot. Bullets whistled all around us, past us, over our heads, burying themselves in the earth next to our feet. It was a miracle that nobody got hit. On March 5th, we were pleased to hear that Bill Consular, that was one of my lawyers, a famous civil rights lawyer from New York, was joining our defense team. Bill Consular, he was an Attica too. He joined the people already working on our behalf. Our own Indian attorney, Raymond Robert Dukes, Beverly Axelrod, Kenneth Tilson, and Mark Lane. They set up headquarters in Rapid City and founded WKLDOC, the Wounded Knee Legal Defense Offense Committee. The feds allowed our lawyers access to us most of the time. Finally, on March 6th, the government issued an ultimatum. I remember those ultimatums. Erickson declared, negotiation cannot be made at gunpoint. He advised us. The situation has become extremely grave. Evacuate your women and children before it is too late. You are given until nightfall on the 8th to evacuate Wounded Knee. The hostile fraction of the press called Wounded Knee a guerrilla theater, but this was no theater. This was war in the truest sense. I warned the government. The massacre of 1890 started when one shot was fired. Now one shot will start a great new Indian war right here. We had to be prepared for the worst. Some of our young men burned the wooden bridge over Wooden Knee Creek to prevent APCs from overturning us from the south. Black smoke rose from the slowly smoldering ruins. We soon realized the Crow Dog was a wizard at devising creative means of defense. Under his direction, we strengthened our bunkets, making them 5 feet deep. Woman made sandbags from pillowcases and old clothes. Crow Dog taught the man who had no firearms to make their own zip guns. Then he filled Coke bottles and light bulbs with gasoline. He put 1,500 of these on one fuse, stung them all the way around our central position, and connected them to a battery so that we could set off the whole system simply by touching the wires together. We pounded charcoal to make gunpowder for use only as a last resort. We planned several round metal 16 M&M canisters, each about the size of a mini pizza. We pretended they were telemines. We made stovepipes look like recoilless rifles. We used every trick in the book to create an impression of strength. We were outgunned, so much weaker than the feds. We naturally wanted to avoid an armed conflict, but we knew the government could force the issue. Early on, I sent out a call to arms to all our Indian and non-Indian supporters. They came, some with guns, some without. One day, no less than 40 walked into our times, walked in at a time. We had by then established our system of gullies, which allowed hidden access to our perimeter. The feds could never close them because they could never find them. They call them Ames Ho Chi Minh Road. Oh God. On March 7th, the first airborne help arrived. A small plane obtained by Rocky Matron and Owen Luck was able to land within our perimeters. They carried food supplies donated by sympathizers. The feds fired hundreds of rounds at the plane, but luckily for us, did not hit it. Until March 8th, we had a charming life. In spite of the feds opening up whenever they had the slightest excuse, or no excuse at all. No one had been hit. But on that day, we suffered our first 2 hits from government fire. We decided that Crow Dog, as our medicine man, was most qualified to handle whatever surgery was needed. Our white doctors, medics, and nurses were treating upper respiratory problems. Go up. Thank you. And even pneumonia, but have expected to be handling bullet wounds. Milo Goings had been shot in the knee. Milo Goings, yeah. Crow Dog first used his special medicine, which he called redwood, to make Milo's knee numb. After the medicine had taken effect, Crow Dog dug the bullet out with a small pocket knife. He disinfected the wound with a special herb and used deer snoo to sew up the wound. Miller said that he didn't feel a thing. He healed in a very short time. Where am I? Oh, right here.
The other victim.
The other victim was a young kid who who got an M16 bullet in the wrist. Crow Dog again applied his redwood medicine. Then he cut a slit in the wrist and opened the bullet out and pulled the bullet out with a pair of tweezers. Then he cleaned the wound with a disinfected herb. The young man could use his wrist again within 2 weeks. A few days later, a man called Two Shots was hit in the ball in the ball of the foot. Crow Dog operation techniques were again successful. The hospital we set up at Wounded Knee was a simple 2-room, 1-story building across from the trading post. One room was the surgery and the dispensary. The other room was the living quarters of Lorelei Decora and Madonna Gilbert, the 2 women who ran the clinic. Lorelei was the Ames state director for Iowa. After Wounded Knee, she became a nurse for the tribal hospital at Rosebud. As I write this, she is trying to establish a diabetic clinic at Porcupine. McDonough was always a brave woman who could hold her own in any fight. Lurie and McDonough used both Western and Indian medicine in treating their patients. They had no antibiotics, painkillers, or even bandages. Outside Wounded Knee, the donated medical supplies were piling up, but those supplies were stopped by the feds or the goons. So we did without. On one war, Loretti has in large letters. Breathing always stops if you press hard enough on it. Good advice. A number of us took that advice once fighting started in earnest. The hospital was under fire almost every night. Every week, the feds allow in a team of a doctor or 2, and several medics. The feds always searched them carefully, going through all of their medical supplies and equipment piece by piece. Pat Kelly, a white physician who had come from Seattle with a small medicine team, told us, "I'm a Vietnam veteran, and the things I have seen here, the rape traces, the flares, the government burning off a raw cover down to the last snort. The APC is what I experienced in Vietnam. It's like a flashback due to Don Long." Lorraine and McDonald risked their lives bringing the wounded in from bunkers and trenches. They were conceived for the people living in flashy homes and trapper shacks who had slugs coming right through their walls. Concerned about the woman chatting and joking in front of our impoverished outhouses while bullets whistle past them. Taking care of the sanitation was also a part of the medical team's duties. They dug the latrines and buried. You know what? Anybody know what the latrines is?
I have no idea what they are.
You don't know? You know,
Outhouses.
It's a bathroom, right?
during the Vietnam War, you know, the veterans used to make holes in the ground so that, you know, if you have to urinate, you have to defecate. That's where you go. Those are what you call latrines.
Damn.
We did that in Attica in the yard too, man, in order for people use their services because there was no bathrooms available. So we had to do what we had to do.
That's inhuman. Fucking hell.
Yeah, and they dug the latrines and buried waste in lime pits. See, Carla Beckley, a Sawtooth Indian from Canada, transforming old garbage into a small style woman's toilet when, after a heavy exchange of fire, one of the medics making the rounds yelled inside, "Everybody's all right? Everybody need tranquilizers. Everybody need tranquilizers?" Clara laughed and said, Imagine a place where you gotta have tranquilizers just to go to the can. In spite of the primitive conditions, our clinic was better managed than the BIA hospital at Roseville. Somebody take over, please. Ooh.
Okay. The people the feds called friendlies, the goons and vigilantes, caused a lot of trouble. Both had set up their own roadblocks. The feds ordered them to remove the obstructions, but without much success. Whenever things were quiet or the government and our people seemed close to an agreement, either the goons or the vigilantes began firing, trying to imply that we were shooting at the feds and that the feds were shooting at us. We knew they intentionally stirred up trouble and provoked firefights. On March 7th, the government's ultimatum was still in force. Get out or else. Our warriors put on face paint. Crow Dog daubed red circles on their foreheads and blessed each man. Then for the first time, we heard an ominous sound. The feds opened up with a 50 caliber machine gun. The 50 caliber was a fearful weapon. A few rounds could knock a wall down. Firefights broke out all throughout the day, but suddenly late in the day, we called a new ceasefire. It was quickly broken when shooting began again. On March 9th, a woman was hurt by flying glass when rapid fire caused havoc in part of the trading post where she was staying. The feds began shooting tear gas into some of the bunkers. As one of the feds boasted to a newsman, we want to flush them out in order to make them into better targets. By that time, the ranks of the feds had swollen to 400. On March 10th, John Adams, a sympathetic Methodist clergyman connected with the National Council of Churches, informed me that he had brokered an agreement. The roadblocks would be coming down, and the media and whoever else wanted to could simply walk in. As we watched through our binoculars, it seemed as though the feds were giving up their positions. A government spokesperson announced, "We will not move on Wounded Knee tonight. The Justice Department will make every effort to arrive at a peaceful conclusion to the tense and dangerous situation." I should have been tipped off by the fact that he added, "But we must enforce the law, and that we will do." I was happy. I was fooled, however. I thought we had won, and so I declared victory. I thought, from what the Methodist clergyman had told me, that Washington was going to accept our demands. There was people drumming, singing, and cheering. More than 100 of our people left and went home, while many new warriors, including chiefs and elders, joined us. But victory did not go smoothly. During the night, vigilantes snuck in and set fire to the trading post. The fire was discovered and quickly extinguished. Just as it was now easy for our friends to come in, it was also easy for enemies. We were forced to send out patrols and put our roadblocks back up again. The Oglala chiefs and headmen talked things over in the peace teepee and declared that from that moment on, they would negotiate with the United States as one nation to another nation. They issued a proclamation. Let it be known, March 11th, 1973, that the Oglala people will revive the Treaty of 1868 and that it will be the basis for all negotiations. Let the declaration be made that we are a sovereign nation by the Treaty of 1868. We intend to send a delegation to the United Nations. We want to abolish the tribal government under the Indian Reorganization Act. Wounded Knee will be a corporate state under the independent Oglala Nation. In proclaiming the independent Oglala Nation, the first nation to be called for support is the Six Nation Confederacy, which is the Iroquois League. We request that the Confederacy send emissaries to this newly proclaimed nation. Sovereignty, that had been in the back of our minds all along. That's what we had dreamed about for so many years, to be out from under the white man's rule, to govern ourselves again, to be truly independent. Now it had happened, but it meant the war was not over. It had barely begun.
And that's the end.
Yep.
Wow, that was powerful.
That was
Shit. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we still haven't even gotten to the major fight at Wounded Knee, right? We still haven't gotten there yet. You okay?
My cat's climbing on my lap and clawing the shit out of me.
But like, we haven't even gotten to the main fight at Wounded Knee, right? We haven't even gotten there.
I
a
mean,
lot of people. There's a lot of people that got killed in Wounded Knee. A lot of people.
Yeah.
It was a total massacre, really. That's what it was.
Yep.
You know, and you know, when I look back at all that, man, it reminds me of the time when I was in Attica, man. I was in the yard. I was calling in the yard, and I was all hurt up, you know. And meanwhile, some of my other brothers were all shot up. They were in crawling in the mud as well, you know. And meanwhile, these assholes were pushing us and kicking us and telling us, man, move, stand up and run, you know. Many of us couldn't even do that, you know.
Jesus.
So I look at that, I look at Wounded Knee, I see glimpses of Attica.
You know,
They treated us in the yard. I mean, they came in firing when there was no need to fire. There was no need to fire. All they had to do is drop that gas, and that totally eliminated anything that was happening in that yard, totally, because we could not see where we were going. And yet at the same time, while we could not see where we were going, they were telling us to surrender to the nearest God. We don't know who the nearest God is because we couldn't see him. You know, so it was crazy. It was really crazy, and it was very scary because all of us
I can only imagine.
that were in that yard that were crawling, injured, shot up, and all that, all of us were at a blink of dying. Our lives were at stake at that very moment, you know, and so it's a blessing. I don't know to who, but it's a blessing that many of us, including myself, survived that massacre.
Jesus. You know,
No, it wasn't Jesus.
oh yeah,
It wasn't
right.
Jesus.
But,
there might have been a Jesus or two, but not Jesus.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. It just playing.
God damn. But like, yeah, it's just, you know, even when it's just disgusting because like even if y'all were to have surrendered, they still would have treated you horribly because the bourgeois don't care. Even if you were to wave a white flag, they would have still used all the power of the state to subjugate and beat you down to quote unquote to show you your place, you know. And that right there is just disgusting.
You know what the dum-dum bullets are?
No, why are they?
Dum-dum bullets are bullets that are illegal but it's illegal not only by the Constitution, but it's illegal by the United Nations.
Where are
You
they?
cannot use dum-dum bullets nowhere. And yet they used them in the yard at Attica.
Wow.
Dum-dum bullets.
Why are they illegal?
Well, I don't know. I don't know the history of it, totally of it, but they're illegal. Apparently, there's a lot of damage and you know, because you know, I hate to say it, the Americans, so-called Americans, you know, they created a lot of damage, man. So apparently, I don't know. The United Nations just came out and said that it was illegal. They could have used it with the Indians as well, you know.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
I just looked it up, and the dum-dum bullets are illegal ever since 1899 because of their capability to expand or flatten inside of the body.
Jesus.
Because it's causing unnecessary suffering and excessive injury. Ooh.
And yet they use them dum-dum bullets, and it's all recorded. So I'm not saying nothing that I could be held accountable for. It's all recorded. It was used in the yard.
That's fucked up.
You know, and they killed a lot. You know, I mean, here's like 80 people all shot up, man, in the yard. All shot up. They 80. Let's say 80. They were more, but let's say 80.
Disgusting.
80 of us all shot up in the yard, and still shooting. They were still shooting. I mean, they came in shooting. They shouldn't have came in shooting. All they did, drop the gas and it was over, man. They could have captured us and put us away, put us in our cells, etc. And it was a game of cards. No, but they had to not only shoot us, they had to kick us, they had to abuse us, they had to push us, they had to spit on us. They did everything under the book. Everything.
I'd like to know
That's disgusting.
why the Hague never holds America responsible for these heinous fucking crimes against humanity. Why is America the one fucking country that never gets held accountable for any of these fucking things?
You want to know why? You want to know why, Sister Zen? Because they changed the narrative. That's why they're never held accountable, because they changed the narrative. They distort, they warp, they whitewash, demonize, dehumanize, do whatever it takes in their power to twist history and make it seem like it and depict the victims as the aggressors. That's why. That's what they get away with their shit. Because as Dennis Banks wrote in the book, it is illegal for the U.S. military or whatever to intervene in domestic affairs. Yet the state, yet the military was so deployed. Why? Because it was beneficial to the bourgeois. Because the bourgeois needed the military, they needed the state to uphold their own interests. Because it's only illegal until it benefits them. It's only illegal until they need it. That's what's illegal. When the victims want liberation, it's illegal. But when the bourgeois do shit that's illegal, it's fine. They needed to do it. Come on now. It was their every right to do as Americans, quote unquote.
Well, I mean, yeah, they're great spin artists. But the fact of the matter is the rest of the world is fully aware of the criminal activities of the United States government against its own people. And it still makes me go, what the fuck? How come none of this has ever been held to account? Because if it were, pretty much everybody who's been in our fucking government would have been dragged in front of the fucking Hague and charged with heinous crimes against humanity.
Well, I think one of the reasons why I think because the narratives has been changed. If you control the pen, you control the writing. And if you control the writing, you control the concepts, people's concepts, people's perception.
People's knowledge.
People read history, from the bourgeois perspective.
Exactly.
So when they look at it's up to us, man. It's up to us to tell the truth.
To educate.
We have to tell the truth, because if we don't tell the truth, then the truth will never be told.
Exactly. Everyone always reads history books. Everyone always reads history books and articles and things from the lens and from the perspective of the victors. They always read it from those who they always read it from the perspective of the oppressors. Whenever you read history books, you never read it from the perspective of Black people or of Indigenous people or of Asian people or of anyone. You always read it from a settler colonial perspective. You always read it from the perspective of the white supremacists and from a white centric view. That's how you always read it, and that distorts your worldview. You start seeing these actions that these governments do as quote unquote necessities, that they had to do this because these people are quote unquote savages. They're monsters, and that's what they do. They portray them as they dehumanize and demonize them and instill in you a reactionary bourgeois thought in order to uphold their own interests and embolden and bolster the forces of reaction. Because as Comrade Shea said, if you control the pen, you control the sword, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. And one thing about and I had to use this term, but the American people are very I don't know,
brainwashed.
Man, no, not well. Yeah, besides that, besides the fact that they're brainwashed, but they are very gullible, man. Very, very gullible.
Oh
They
yeah.
sort of like forget. They sort of like forget things. You know, I
Mhm.
mean, look right now. Look what's happening with Trump in the whole scenario. You know,
Yeah.
Trump went to court. You know, we don't even know what was said in court. He was never given another date to go back to court. Something
Mhm.
that hardly ever seen in a court of law. He hasn't
Exactly.
he hasn't even been told. As a matter of fact, we don't even know if he's on probation, if he's on the word. We don't know nothing. He just
Yeah.
went to court and made a speech. I think he made a smile like always, send his shake his hand in the air, and then
Hmm.
he left. Now we don't know where he's
Yep.
going back. We don't even know
Exactly.
if he's under what conditions. We don't even know if he's bailed. Does he have any bail? We don't know nothing. You know,
Yep.
and yet, and yet, we allow that to happen.
Yep. You know, it's similar. It reminds me how it reminds me how, in the very beginning of COVID, every single news source was talking about COVID. Everyone was talking about COVID. But when it started getting bad, once the deaths started to range in the millions in the U.S. alone, everyone all of a sudden stopped talking about it. You will never hear any news source now talk about COVID, even though it's still going on. And it's scary to me because people have just stopped talking about COVID. They act like like it's gone. Like we're not still in the pandemic. Like we are still in the pandemic, but because it's not being talked about, and because these news sources are not mentioning it to brainwash people and make things seem like like they're okay. Everyone just sort of forgot about COVID and that we're still in a pandemic, and that's scary. Like there are people who I literally have to remind sometimes about COVID because they literally just forgot about it completely. It's fucking scary.
I'll be right back.
Yeah,
You okay, Sister Trisha?
Yeah, just going to refill my ice.
it's definitely scary, man. Because we getting ready. If we don't watch, if we don't step in as a united people to
Mm-hmm.
stop all the things that are happening. If we don't step in now, there's going to be another war, another world
Indeed.
war.
There will be.
And this one here is going to
Like no
take
other war.
many of us out of here
Yep,
because
literally.
it's going to be a nuclear war.
Yep.
And and
I have a.
and,
I'm sorry.
you got to understand they're messing with China. You know how many
Yep.
Chinese people there are in China? There's more than you put together. You put Latin America, and you put the United States, and you put Latin America, the United States, and part of Europe. You put them
There's
together,
like 1 billion.
and they still don't amount to the people that are in China. It's a lot of
There's like
people.
1 billion.
Yes, they're in the billions, man.
Yep. Like.
And their technology is highly sophisticated.
Yep.
I mean, most of other products that are sold in this country, where do they come from?
I
China.
don't know. Yep. Also, just so this conversation doesn't derail a little bit, although it is very fascinating, I wanted to ask Johnny, Comrade Johnny, do you have anything to say about the book and this chapter, or does anyone at all? Hmm.
I
Johnny,
chimed in kind of late and I was driving, so I've been just listening, to be honest. I couldn't read along.
Ali,
It's fine.
Ali,
It, it's
how
fine.
you
Don't
doing?
worry, comrade. But yeah, it's just this chapter was powerful, like all the other ones, and it just really shows how organization can how organizing and how revolution can work. It can succeed, like Dennis Banks said. in his chapter, he had never seen so many indigenous people, so many tribes working together before, like no other. It was beautiful, and that's beautiful. That's revolution right there. That's that revolutionary solidarity when the masses combine and work together for the cause of liberation and emancipation. That's beautiful, because only the masses can bring about revolution and emancipation, not the bourgeois, not the Republicans, not the Democrats, not the fucking electoral college, not this fucking bullshit. Only we can do that. Yeah. And it's just really beautiful. Just reading this chapter and just seeing that pan-indigenous sentiments growing within AIM. And yeah. You got something to say, Comrade Che?
Oh, kitty.
Hey, Sister Trisha, you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I was just grabbing more ice water. It's hotter than fuck out today.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it looks like you're sweating bullets.
I just want to say something very briefly. I had to go to the store, so I'm gonna have to book out of here.
Mm-hmm.
So the store's about 10-minute walk from here. For 10 minutes walk and 10-minute walk. Hopefully that y'all here. If not, then I'll see you in the next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, we'll be here tomorrow. If you're gonna join us tomorrow, that would be awesome.
I'll be here tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
You're awesome, Comrade Che. You're awesome, Comrade Che, and I love you, Comrade. You're wonderful.
Does anybody else have any thoughts to throw in on this chapter?
You weren't here, sisters, and I was actually asking the same thing. I was asking if you or if Comrade Johnny or if anyone had any thoughts on this chapter.
I thought it was a very good, deep chapter, how you're seeing both sides, from the other native people, how they were trying to go against everyone who was in Wounded Knee, and then you got the pigs on the other side. So it's like you kind of feel trapped in a way, but at the same time they're not giving up to stand down. And I feel like that was very inspiring to hear, to know these things, because we're out protesting so many times, and having this knowledge of standing up and not being afraid. Doesn't matter if the odds are against you, you still got to fight to what you believe in. And he clearly shows that in this chapter, among other chapters as well. Is like, I'm not giving up. We're gonna still fight until we die. So that's always good to have and to know, because that's also good to live by, to to follow on these examples, because this is how you protest. This is how you stand up for your rights.
Exactly. That revolutionary optimism is what we need nowadays. We need that optimism.
We need that.
And to quote one of the greatest revolutionaries who ever lived, you may kill a revolutionary as an individual, but you can never kill ideas. Thomas Sankara. You can always kill a revolutionary individually, but a movement is not led by a quote unquote liberator. A movement is not led by one person, by one great man, or by a small group of people leading the revolution. No, we are our own liberators. We are the ones that are going to liberate ourselves. And even if one of us dies, even if one of the leadership dies, that's not the end all be all, because one of us is going to pick up the gun and continue the revolution. So long as there are oppressed people all over the world, there will always be revolutionary potential, and there will always be a revolution, no matter what.
Yeah, we should always keep that alive. No, we have to.
Yep. Also, I just want to say the call is running 1 hour and 31 minutes. Just want to say that.
Okay. We made good timing then.
Oh yeah.
All right.
We sure as hell did.
If nobody else has any other thoughts, then we can wrap this up here. And we will continue tomorrow with chapter 15.
All power to the people.
All power.
I hope you'll have a wonderful day. See you, comrades.
Bye.
Hi, Alyssa. There.